Oh, and you can't see us. Now you can see us. There we go. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, RFK Refugees podcast. Ted here, John here. Well, hey, at least everything looks like it is correct as far as the let me actually, I need to adjust some audio. I don't remember if I actually adjusted it. Might have to do it the old-fashioned way. Anyway, we're flying kind of blind here. Producer Brian had we've had our normal lives, I think, get into the intervene into the show. I think it's safe to say, John, right?
It is. And also, it's really unacceptable that you guys allow your paying jobs and your families to get in the way of this podcast that we do recreationally. It's not acceptable. We're going to have a conversation after this podcast. Team meeting. It's not going to be good.
All right. Yep. So I'm going to be chastised. But in the meantime, let's talk some soccer.
Let's do it.
Let's talk some soccer. So John, let's jump right into it. I think the big news. This is kind of old news, I think, in a lot of ways.
This is what happens when we skip a week. We've got old news to keep up on, particularly in the off season when new news doesn't really generate itself very quickly.
Yeah. So I guess the big news, obviously, I think we kind of talked on the show that we kind of last week. I think it was about ready to wrap up the CBA. So I think we were kind of in the things that this is probably going to get signed. I have to admit, I am done believing anything as far as the players actually wanting a CBA or a strike, for instance. I am done believing when they say, "Oh, this is it. We're gonna strike. We're gonna strike. This is it. This is when we put our foot down." So
the owners are with you on that, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
They are pressing X for doubt.
Yep. They're like, "All right, yeah, you can strike. Yeah, we'll just shut the doors and that'll be it." But let's get into the CBA. I think the big part about this is 5 years on the CBA,
which is a big win for the owners in any way you slice it.
Yeah, any way you slice it, and a minor win, let's say, for soccer podcasts and producers, in the fact that we don't have to talk about. I think the only podcast that's hurting right now might be the allocation disorder, because they've kind of made that their thing. Oh, we're going to do labor negotiations, and they do a much better in-depth job, and they've have probably a more nuanced breakdown than we'll have here today. Probably because you guys already know sort of a lot of the details of the thing, but we'll definitely talk about it. But 5 years. So we don't have to talk about this until right after the 2026 World Cup, I think is what it is. So the big thing obviously is the owners got what they wanted. 2-year extension. The existing CDA runs through 2027. So they based it, all right, we'll pay you your 100% of your salaries, but we want this extra 2 years. And tough place for the players, because there are probably some players that are like, well, I'm not going to probably be here in 2027. I am 30 right now. I'm going to be retired by then.
The crux of all labor negotiations is, what does this mean for me?
Yeah.
and not what does this mean for our overall sort of strength as an organization? That's the real unfortunate part about it.
Yeah, and I think what we saw right here was the players still just have very, very little negotiating power. I think the guys on the allocation sort of the best. They said, this is still tilted towards the owners. Every labor negotiation is tilted towards the owners. They're the ones with the money. Even if the millions and millions of dollars that the players are making, it pales into comparison to what some of these owners have. And MLS is even more so it's even more tilted. The owners can go away without having to worry about a paycheck. The owners are they can, all right, we'll shut it down. We don't care. Yeah, we'll just shut the doors and deal with it.
Ted, tell me if this is too insensitive and too like learn to code of me to say this, but the conversation was basically saying there are guys making $80,000 a year who cannot afford to not play.
Yep.
Which is true. I get that, but then I also think about like opportunity cost for these players. So if you're making $80,000 and you're at the bottom of the roster, and you're not getting a lot of play time, like it would behoove me, if it's me, I'm 22 years old. It'd be one thing if I was a Moses Nyman or something, 15 or 16 years old and on not a lot of money. That's one thing, but I'm a college graduate. I'm making the minimum. I would be really pushing myself to try to develop some. I would try to Russell Knauss it. Russell Knauss with his 9 income streams. If the league went away tomorrow, he'd probably be okay. He would probably be fine. Like, he's got a lot of things cooking. It seems to me like it's a really good thing to be a hustler as a professional athlete that's not making a lot of money, so that you're not left in the lurch so much. I don't know if that's sort of like learn to code when you get fired or whatever. I understand that, but like I remember 2 years ago the league used to let players get their finish their bachelor's degree or master's at like some online
Southern New
New
Hampshire
Hampshire.
University. Yeah,
Yeah,
Southern New Hampshire University.
like I mean whatever, but I think Chris Seitz is doing it now still. Like I think that's do that, because it's an obvious strength that the owners have. Not everybody's going to be Chris Wondolowski and be a reserve league player, and then all of a sudden at the end of a long and storied career be the all-time goal scoring leader. You're probably going to wash out. You're probably not going to have a long career. So like, I don't know. I think that the union should really be pushing, and maybe they are, and it's just not publicized, but really be pushing these players on the lower end of the income scale to give themselves some economic resilience, so that the next time this thing comes around, that obviously there's not a big strike fund. They used it all, they said, to sort of make up from last year. But I'm trying to look long term how the players can really win on these, and the problems that they have, like the place of soccer in society, the fact that if MLS went away, we would be really mad and upset. But it really probably wouldn't register on ESPN, for instance, or in the broader market. So that's the only way I see them winning, is to strengthen their own economic hand, so that they can actually be a good faith opponent for the owners. Because right now they're just running them over with a truck.
I see them winning, or I see them starting to maybe win, or really have a collective, when there are suddenly enough talented players that the union could organize sort of a hey, call out to other teams. Hey, you Liga MX, Club America, do you want this guy maybe for like a few months, or do you need this guy? You don't have to pay a transfer fee. You just sign him to a contract. Maybe you sign him for like a 6-month contract while we go through these labor. Once we start getting and I do think we are on a path there. The MLS market is suddenly becoming a fairly desirable market for players. Now that could change, and it fluctuates, and it moves around. But I think that is, other than the players suddenly making, once the minimum income becomes $200,000, $300,000, where that's the only thing I can see is suddenly there is enough talent, there's enough recognized talent in this league, and you have sort of the big name players maybe who are like, hey, we'll chip in some money. We're making $50 million. We have that money. We can chip in. I mean, I think in this 5-6 years, if I'm the union, I am putting together a plan where maybe we can organize a rainy day fund where we can really sort of shield ourselves at the very least, and also develop a network, or figure out a way to get in. Once we start approaching the collective bargaining agreement, start going to some of these teams maybe and figuring out a way to have contracts. I don't know how legal it is. I don't know if MLS would cry foul, but probably. But I mean, it's an idea. It's a way. I'm trying to come up with a way that these players can sort of gain more leverage, because I think that's what we all want. We want the players to have more leverage. We're not cheering Jason Levian. We're not cheering Rob Kraft. We're cheering, Felipe Martins. We're cheering, for those players. So we have a bigger connection to the players than we do certainly the owners and certainly the club as well. They're the ones out there. So, but let's talk a little bit about the CBA.
Yep. So I think that the real, the two concessions to players were the 100% compensation this year, which
they kind of gave to him.
Right. Somewhat short-sighted as far as like, if that's your big chip, but that's what they got. And the other thing was a slight change in the free agency setup. So if you'll remember, if you're a medium-term fan of MLS, or a nerd that's been following, I would say not just fan, if you're into MLS roster machinations, you'll know that free agency has not always been a thing in MLS. It's kind of weird. You have to be pretty old by the terms of like your prime, and have played with the team for a certain number of years to get that opportunity. So all they've done now is they've changed it slightly to make it in the year 2020, in the 2026 season, which feels forever from now, but it is in fact 5 years from now. Players 24 and older will with at least 4 years of MLS service at the end of their contracts are eligible to become a free agent. Also, there are rules in how much money more you can make. So again, to get into the really nerdy stuff here, For players making the maximum salary budget charge or less, a free agent can sign a contract with another club with an initial salary of greater than 25% above the maximum salary budget charge or 20% above blah, blah, blah. For players making the maximum salary budget charge and the maximum TAM amount, so players that are big names, basically, usually big names or like major parts of their team who are no longer in the plans but want to stay in MLS, that player could earn 20% above the prior salary, up to $500,000 above the maximum salary charge. So basically, the way it's older player insurance. It's big name insurance when a team no longer wants to have that budget hit there, but somebody else in MLS does, and they don't want to worry about all of the allocation order, all of the re-entry draft, all that stuff. It's just saying let's let someone negotiate their value and go where they want to go. I think both of us would like that to just be the standard across the board. After your rookie contract is up, you go where you want, and you can get what the market dictates for you. But they will hold with both hands, with steel fingers, to make sure that doesn't happen, because that is how you get wage inflation. That is how you burn up your budget on players that don't necessarily bring people through the door and don't bring eyes to the TV. So owners will push against that. The single entity is built to keep wage pressure downward. So, but they I mean, it's a small improvement. It's minor. 5 years from now, they're gonna get it. But that's one thing.
One of the interesting things about the thing, which I think you left out of our outline, so I'm going to call you out for it,
okay.
Is the under 22 player initiative, which is set to begin in the 2021 season. Now, this is actually interesting. I'm curious to see kind of what it develops. I feel like I see things that are sort of put in MLS, and then it's like, okay, well, I think it's going to go this way, and it ends up being used in a totally different way. So what this is that there's still some details, I guess, to be figured out with this. But basically, this thing is that teams will basically any players under the age of 22 with no limitations on acquisition costs. So they can spend $30 million on a player under 2022, bring him in. That does not, because normally when DC goes out and buys a player, or they pay for a player, they agree to the transfer fee. That transfer fee gets factored into their salary budget. So you can't just go spend $30 million on a player, pay them $1, and say they're not a designated player, basically. No, they're a designated player. But what this does is say is they're under age of 22 and they make less than the maximum budget charge, which is set to be $612,000, then you can pay as much as you want for that player, and basically they will take a reduced cap hit. I think it's around $100,000 to $200,000. That is a very, very interesting, very interesting move. And I'll be curious to see how a team like DC United takes advantage of this. They have started to go after some of these more younger base players. Will that sort of change how they look at things? You can, go out and scout South America, and you can find a 20, 21-year-old. You can, as long as you can agree on a salary that's $612,000, you can go sign them and you get them at that reduced cost. So again, it's going to add a little interesting wrinkle, I think, to the MLS budget. And it's sort of, it's enforcing the idea of this league wanting to be a selling league. And so they want to encourage signing younger players that you maybe can sell 2-3 years down the line. I know the questions, of course, of how much money do they make, from those transfers. There's always homegrown players 100%. The math gets a little weird once you have a player that you sort of sign that's not a homegrown player. But that's sort of, I think, the most interesting wrinkle. And I'll be curious which teams sort of take advantage of that, because it seems pretty no-brainer. I mean, if you can go out and spend whatever you want on a transfer fee and you don't have to worry about how that impacts your budget, that sort of opens the door. And I'm wondering, we've seen moves like Emil Assad, where they agreed on a fee, but they said, well, we need to break this up because we need to make sure this stays within our salary budget. And the South American club was like, we don't understand.
What is this?
No comprende. You'll pay the full amount right now, please. So I think that maybe that drove a little bit this sort of initiative, like, hey, we gotta loosen the grip a little bit on the transfer fees if we want to get good talent in here. Now this question: can they scout the talent? There have been plenty of players that have come in that we think are going to be studs in this league that end up falling flat on their face. Pity Martinez being one who might be back in a little bit. We can maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Don't worry, I'm going to scout Ted. I've now paid for Fanates. I have now all of the South American leagues that I can watch. I can watch Portugal. I can watch all $7 a month, and so I will scout for DC United. I will pro bono scout these leagues and let them know who they should sign for cheap.
They might call you up on that.
They might.
One last thing. So a large reason was, I think, this push by MLS to push this past the World Cup and the supposed World Cup bump.
The definite World Cup bump. It'll happen. You don't think
so?
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not going to sit here and say, there'll be nothing. It'll be exactly the same as it was. But we live in a very, very different. I think people are imagining this 1994 massive World Cup bump, this amazing, I think really if this World Cup had come to the U.S. this upcoming year in 2022, I think it may be a more significant bump. I would even doubt its bump. Right now, you have so much soccer now that you can watch. I sat this Saturday and watched the Belgian league because ESPN just signed a right, so I got to watch Chris Durkin play for STVV. Or St. Truden. I'm not sure what the proper pronunciation is, but there is so much soccer content out there these days. And I'm sorry, people, if you complain about all the over-the-top services you have to buy or not buy depending on what you want, you're spoiled. I'm sorry. Let's go back to the days. I do see posts reminiscing about Fox Soccer Channel, and I'm like, okay, sure, it was nice to have a dedicated soccer channel. It was nice to have something you could flip on the TV, and there'd be some Asian highlight show. I'll sit and watch this. This sounds interesting, but dear Lord, Saturday rolls around and you could watch one match.
And it used to be $35 when you had a long time ago. It was like $35.99 a month.
Yeah, it
went down. It went down over time, but at the original, it was crazy.
Folks, I understand the streaming services are annoying in a lot of ways, and sometimes I wish it was a little better organized. I understand it. It's a house of cards that's going to fall eventually because people are going to get sick and tired of paying for this. But the fact of the matter is, folks, we're living in a golden age, and I just doubt with the amount of soccer that's out there. I don't know how much a World Cup bump is really going to happen for MLS. I think there'll be something, but I'm just not. I think we'll see maybe a bit more in the lead up to the World Cup, but not so much maybe afterwards. I think we'll see a lot. The qualifying, the U.S. team, there'll be promotions, and you'll start seeing that. And
there's going to be so much money spent on soccer marketing, so much that just from the sheer brunt of that, I think there will be more eyeballs saying, all right, well, where can I actually go see this once the World Cup's done? Just like last time. Mm-hmm. I think, it doesn't reset the framework. It's not going to reset the TV deal to an extent where the players are going to get hosed by a large margin. I think that won't happen. But I want to address some questions from the chat real quick.
Sure.
Mark Rickling said that we were talking back sort of about the advantage you were talking about being able to spend more on transfer fees. And I read this book forever ago and I forget it now. Classic Soccernomics finding: team salary is correlated with wins. Net transfer spend is not. And he said, of course, this is from Europe and not MLS. So don't know if it's true or not. And I was saying that I think that's a good point, because what you pay in a international transfer market has no relevance to your domestic market. You could pay way more than a player is worth to your team from when you're importing them versus internally in the market. The market is decided by the quality of players within the league. So you're making an assumption based on data that you can't confirm that player from League Y will do well in League X because of unknown information. So I think that's interesting when you look at a salary cap league. You can't build up an advantage on salary. You don't. The max is the max. You can spend less, but the only advantage you can have is spending on those ancillary costs, the transfer fees, etc.
I will say, you say yes to Europe. I will say MLS is kind of a different fish in sort of its salary and league structure, where you've seen the teams that have gone out and spent the money and brought in the players and paid that amount and do it well and scout well are very successful. Mm-hmm. Atlanta completely rewrote the rules on transfers. They broke some records. Yeah, they swung and miss on a couple
A couple in a row. Yes,
couple
they
in a
did.
row, which just shows that just can happen. But I
And
mean,
then he can write them off.
Yeah.
And the ownership can be like, we missed it.
yeah,
And
just
not
try
be like,
again.
well, we're never going to sign. Like when DC United missed Marcelo Gallardo, they didn't sign a DP for like 2 or 3 years. That's the difference.
That was more financial, I think, than
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's
than
the difference.
anything. So I mean, there was more pressure on sort of financials for that.
And then one other comment here from Asthmatic10 from Twitch says, will the bump be lessened by TV focus on U.S. players playing abroad if the focus is watching MLS? That's a good.
That's a very good point.
It could. The idea is how many young players that are still here will be featuring on the team by then, by that many years from now. Hard to say. You're looking at the U17s now, then basically. So it's a question, but I think you're right. If the trend continues where the money ball for Europe is to find these 17, 18-year-old players with like 6 games in FC Dallas to go play for Bayern Munich, then we're not going to be able to keep many of them. So you're right. At MLS will just basically be like, hey, you know that soccer you liked in the World Cup? None of those players are here, but you can watch the sport here.
I
over
think
here.
I think if we have learned anything, I think from the 2018 disaster, U.S. soccer needs to keep churning out, and I think that's what we've seen right now. We've seen players, Matthew Hoppe, coming out of nowhere. We need that to be a consistent thing in order to be that. I was curious. I was like, what is Christian Pulisic's age? He's 22 years old. He's having some struggles at Chelsea right now. Those are hopefully temporary. Hopefully that's not the start of a trend. But I think he will be sold in the summer somewhere else right now. It may change. But
I don't think that Thomas Tuchel will necessarily be here next year, depending on how things go. So,
but on 2026, he'll be 28. So you're looking at least maybe another World Cup after that. He's 32 by the 2030 World Cup. But at 2026, he'll be in his prime at that point. And you've got a lot of players younger than him: Gio Reyna, Tyler Adams, Mark McKenzie, all these players that are now suddenly finding their footwork in Europe. And starting to show it. It's pushing guys like Jordan Morris and Paul Arriola, which, by the way, I think I saw a list of, like, Paul Arriola is getting dogged on heavily by USMNT fans.
We'll talk about it.
But I do think there still will be a place. You can't, unless there is an absolute revolution in American soccer, I think you will still see players from MLS on that team, because it is it'll be very, very difficult to have 18 players playing in Europe in every position on a World Cup roster. You're going to need to fill some gaps and fill some holes, and that's why it helps to have a strong domestic league. So I think
that's why we're doing this.
I think you could see a shift. There was a lot of focus on MLS in 2022, 2020, 2006. And even 2010, there was a lot of focus on MLS and the players there. I do think you will hopefully see more, hey, this guy started at Philadelphia, signed for Red Bull Salzburg, and is now playing at Manchester United and is playing on the world. I think you'll see some of those types of stories where, hey, this guy started here in MLS, And I think that's what MLS is preparing for. That's why they want to be a selling league. They want to be a league where you can say, hey, I saw this guy when he was at Philly, and I think that's the important, that's sort of the what MLS is driving for.
It is wild to me and entirely predictable that MLS went from wanting to be the EPL to wanting to be Ligue 1.
Yeah.
In like 6 years, when they realized, like, you know what, not going to happen. Let's stop pretending. And then the last thing I want to cover from this is the last CBA note. The thing that matters from a roster construction point in 2021, this is counting all of the funny money. So general allocation money and discretionary TAM, which we're not going to get into on this podcast. If you want to do that, go to listen to this allocation disorder. Right now in 2021, the max is 9.2 million. In 2027, the max will be 13 million. So 4 million up.
Yeah.
Inflation, a little bit of that.
Now, again, there are soft caps in MLS, so who knows? MLS might suddenly. MLS reserves the right to change the rules, to throw in. Hey, let's throw in another $1 million in GAM, or let's throw in $2 million in GAM.
I bet you after these 2 years they will not be doing that. I think that is the time when they're a little flush. Like now they're a little bit like, wow, can we save money to get to the next? So I think this is what you're going to see. That this of course does not include spending monies on DP stuff. This is just what the league gives you to spend on your roster, not even what your owners have to. Important thing for new fans to understand and appreciate. That money is not paid for directly by the owner. That's not coming out of Jason Levian's pocket. The league pays for these salaries. The GAM, TAM, all that stuff comes from MLS. The checks are not written from Jason to Paul Areola. They come from the league office. Here's your money. So all the money that these owners spend on the roster is the DPs and any sort of external transfer fees. That's their costs. So keep that in mind when you look at spend and guys you're bringing in.
And for our next topic, we will talk about how silly transfer rumor articles are, say, when DC United, New York Red Bulls join race for player X. Yeah. When there's discovery rules and all kinds of other fun
dorky
things.
Stuff.
Let's talk Jersey now. Let's move on. Let's get to Jersey. So John, the new jersey came out. Yep. It is not boring white Hanes t-shirt. So not. Already
A plus
from that perspective. Sort of mixed reaction amongst the fans. Some like it. I will say I think this is a difficult jersey to judge based on pictures. I'll be curious to see how it looks sort of live.
I have it tomorrow. I'll show you tomorrow.
Yeah, because I saw the pictures and I'm like, okay, so they've got the blue accent. All right, it's not, it looks better. And everybody's like, oh, why the blue? We're black and red. What are you doing? I think they were trying to sort of pay homage to the Cat in the Hat kit, which is.
They said that after the fact. I think after they got a little bit of stick the next day, they put out a video like, hey, look, we used to be blue.
See? You know what? I am perfectly fine with the team. With the away jersey, the home jersey should be black. It should be solid black.
Forever,
it should
always.
That is a classic, iconic look that should never go away. But for the away jersey, go nuts. Come up with some weird. If we're not going to have a third jersey, let's go crazy. Let's come up with some weird things. Let's do weird things. I still think the red jersey that they had with like the logo that was like that was probably the sharpest away jersey that we have had, and it's a shame. I think it was a couple years back. It was like the red, and then it kind of faded out towards the bottom. I think.
You like that one, huh?
Yeah, I like that.
That was not the one that looked like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yeah, no, not that one. That one, I think they got burned kind of on that one. Like, oh, let's just go with something like classic and solid, and then now we're gonna start inching our way back towards that.
It's fashion, right? Like that's how it goes. It's trends. Although a white T-shirt was never the trend. That was never the way to go.
Yeah.
We don't, normally have producer Brian on here, and we would throw the picture on there. We do not have that capability, but check it out. It's on DCUnited.com. If somehow you're listening to the show and haven't seen the jersey, I bought it. I said I was going to buy it no matter what. I think somebody on Twitter, I think it was Mark again, said, where is it? What is up with these prices on these jerseys? Tax the rich. Am I right? Or am I right? Yeah, it's not. If you want authentic and you want personalization, you about to pay. And I think the fact that I'm not buying tickets anymore because you can't get into the stands gives me some money to play with. But also, like I said, too much of my wardrobe is jerseys. So, and that will forever thus. So I will be buying them no matter what. I think it's a slight risk they took. Certainly not the most risky thing they could have done. I like to see sleeves being different. I think that breaks up. I think to have sort of like a color block difference from the main body to the sleeves, I like the contrast. But it's fine.
Yeah.
Buy it if you want. If you don't want to, don't.
I think the full kit with the blue shorts and everything gives it sort of, I think, a better look, and I'm still very glad that they are keeping the black kit with the red shorts this year. It looks like, which is very good. So
Ryan Johnson on YouTube wants to know why third kits are not a thing in MLS, and I love that red third kit. If my bed was clean, I would show you over my shoulder. I just hung up my red jersey with that whole bunch of autographs on it. It very cool jersey. Loved it. They had it for 1 year, I believe.
I got my Dero one too. I still have my Dero red kit. I bought that. That was a very solid kit.
If you followed the news about it previously in the last couple weeks, I know that Pablo had a piece about Atlanta United getting a third kit, and the reason, I mean, it's a boring reason. Like it's all about stock purchased, and they don't want to have teams stuck with a bunch of jerseys that don't sell. It makes sense. Like, I get it. It sucks that there aren't enough people who want to buy jerseys that they can dependably just buy them and know that they'll get sold. But it's not the case. Even, DC United home jerseys, if you wait till the end of the year, like, you can get it for $50, $30, $40. You just wait and it happens. They buy more than they can sell. And I think DC United's like towards the bottom in the league of jerseys sold. So if you want them, buy them. Like, if you want a third jersey, buy this white jersey.
Yep. Buy a black one. Buy. It's all tied to sales. And
we need an Amazon affiliate link through the show. Like, if you listen to us and buy a DC United jersey, we get 1% of the sale. We gotta figure it out. We'll talk to the team.
Yeah. But definitely. I think it's still it's better than last year. I think, and that was kind of the bar right now. Just be something more interesting than last year. And some people don't like it. I think there's some people, going into the, I guess, American style of it, sort of the blue and the red.
Oh, that it's patriotic.
Yeah, patriotic. Which,
whatever.
Yeah,
Facebook comments. The Facebook page is so toxic.
Yeah,
y'all. If you are listening to us and you're a Facebook commenter, like, just go do something else, man.
Yeah.
Just go, have a sandwich. Like, people are so mad.
The forever gift I will use, I say, calm down, Greg, it's soccer. Like, it's
the off season. Like, wait till they lose 6 games in a row. And then if you want to yell at the social media manager, go for it, I guess. You and I feel strongly about this.
Yeah.
We don't like to just yell at we have a podcast, thus we have an outlet. But
I kind of step back. People say, "Oh, you're just a shill for the team," and but it's like, hey, listen to some of our shows last year. We were pretty much done with this team, with Olsen and just how they were playing. We had reached that point where it was so painfully obvious that things needed to get done. And we will remain 100% truthful for this team. We are not going to change our opinions. We have a new coach. There's a new let's see how they do in the offseason. We didn't even get to the transfer window. Transfer window starts March 10th. We're not even in a transfer window right now. So it's going to be an excessively long. I think it runs until June.
Yep.
Which is pretty incredible. I think that's almost set up to actually almost be in that sort of summer window for Europe once Europe wraps up.
It gives teams a chance to replace, like, an Areola if he signs with full. Like, if they ended it early, that would change things for them. So
yeah. So I mean so let's let we all got, there are a lot of Olsen out people. I'm like, all right, you got what you wanted. Now let's see what Hernan Losada can do. Let's see what the team can do. If you don't like the kit, that's fine. Don't buy it. Honestly, don't buy it, and that'll send the message enough that they need to do better next time around. If they want more people to buy it.
No one bought the last one, so clearly this will be an improvement.
I saw a couple. I feel like I don't know. Maybe I didn't. But
if you're in the chat, if you're watching us right now and you bought one of the white jerseys last year, please let us know. I don't think there's any of you. So let's move on to the next thing. And this is another thing that's now a little dated. No, it's not. That's the next topic after that. Lucho is potentially coming back to MLS. If you saw my thread, I got very excited about the possibility. I said why it could work. I talked about the difference between a Ben Olsen team and potentially Hernan Losada team. But it appears that it's not going to happen. It appears that if he's going anywhere in MLS, he's going to FC Cincinnati. So I will not go down the rabbit hole of the what ifs if he came back to DC. DC apparently will get some sort of not transfer, but they'll get some sort of financial benefit. Frankie Amaya apparently wants to leave FC Cincinnati. I would be interested in maybe taking him as a component of that, or maybe in entirety of that. I don't know. But FC Cincinnati is going bananas crazy right now. They are clearly tired of being offensively boring, and they've signed, and I don't have his name, a young Brazilian player who was
Alexander Pato, I think.
Nope. He went to Orlando.
Oh, okay.
but a player who was being tracked by Man United, who had a $40 million transfer target on him before he went here. He had a year. He's only had one full year as a senior player for his team, for his domestic team. But it's clearly they're trying to change the way that they're perceived around the league. And also, like, if I'm Lucho Brenner, thank you, Ryan Johnson.
Yep.
If I'm Lucho and I want to get back in the conversation about playing in Europe, I go to where the eyes are in the league. I had the opportunity to play with Wayne. The eyes were on Wayne. I got calls from PSG. If I go here where this player is being tracked by the rest of the world, if I go there and do well and have another Lucharoo season, but with this Brenner guy, I'm back in it. So I think that I'm in the bag. I'm looking at an autograph picture above my my monitor. I would love for him to come back here, but it's not going to happen. And at least if DC gets something out of it, that you can't beat that.
Yeah, and I think I am pretty sure that FC Cincinnati called Casper and they were like, "Hey, we're interested in signing Lucho," and he's like, "Oh, you are? Yeah, we're interested too. Sure, yeah.
Yes.
How much you want?" And the fact that DC is interested is just to, in my opinion, just to drive up. If FC Cincinnati drops out, maybe they reach out and they talk. Acosta's on the outs at Atlas, from what I've understood. He's made a couple spot appearances, substitute appearances. I still have my Lucho jersey. I will forever cherish the memories of 2018 and how much we got, like half a season of just excitement where it was the idea of wanting to watch a DC United game because they were actually fun to watch at that point with Wayne Rooney and Lucho Acosta. But I am forever skeptical. I think Acosta got basically was figured out in 2018 with Lucho and Wayne, and there was a lot of other things circling around. I am not convinced that he can put it together for a consistent amount of time. Consistency is what I am not seeing. I am more certain that a player like Edison Flores could put together consistency better than Lucho Acosta. So I am fine with if the team gets $500,000, $600,000 for it. Fantastic. That's a 1% or a small percentage of
money. It's $20 you found in your jeans as you're washing your clothes.
Basically,
that you didn't expect to find.
So
this is enough Lucho slander. He's on the bench tonight for Atlas. Whatever. I wish that things were different. We're also linked to Kieran Gibbs.
Is this one of those other like articles where it's like we're in the race? I'm just
glad to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
When Wayne went here, any player that was playing in Europe who was going to go to MLS was like, might go play DC United.
One thing that's interesting, one interesting rumor, again, we don't have a link yet, but apparently Kamar Lawrence, who's currently in Belgium right now, is linked to an MLS move from an ex-Red Bull defender. And the only reason why maybe we're saying this is because he currently plays in Belgium, played at Anderlecht. He played at Anderlecht. We just hired an assistant coach from Anderlecht. So
we also had him on a trial and cut him.
Yeah.
And then he went to New York and was excellent for many years.
Yep. So hey, a chance to make up, so to speak. Now having him in there. So I would look at this and be like, maybe there's some legs to that. Of course, we already let go. We are now for certain that O'Neal Fisher is not going to be back. He is apparently signed with LA. Yep. So
lots of people very upset with that.
Yeah. I think
I think people just like him personally.
It's a fan connection. And this is the thing with MLS. There isn't, it isn't like the NFL. It isn't like the NBA. There isn't, free agency within the league where who exactly. There's just such an international market. You pay teams to sign players. That doesn't exist in other leagues. So we don't know who the team is looking at, who the team's been scouting. Hernan has now been in DC for a while. Maybe they've started to scout some players. Maybe they started to make some moves. We are going to see players. They have to sign players. We're going to see players come in. Everybody just relax. Let's assess who they bring in. Let's not say, oh, we're losing all these players and we don't have anybody yet. They're going to sign players, whether they're good or not.
There will be players on the roster.
Yes.
Probably less than the 28 that they're allowed, but that's That's how they roll. That's a
Maybe
great
still Andy
transition.
Nahar. Maybe still Andy Nahar.
What a great transition to the
Yes.
possibility. YouTuber, once again, Ryan Johnson wants to hear us talk about Andy Nahar. So let's talk about Andy Nahar. Andy Nahar, rumored to come back to his boyhood club, DC United. He has had, quite a hell of a run, quite a run of bad luck, injuries.
This was a player who signed for Anderlecht and was on Arsenal's radar. When he was lighting up, there was rumor, and DC had that sell-on clause, and injuries and everything else just everything kind of all went wrong. Now apparently he's also being looked at by Olympia. I don't know if that's agent maybe saying, hey, pay me what I'm worth, otherwise I'm going to go to Olympia. That's kind of what that seems like. I did see that. Potentially being linked there. But I would love Andy Nahar back. I am somebody who watched Andy Nahar, all the way back in 2010.
Yep.
I understand he's a shell of his former self. I think it would be great to have him back sort of in his hometown. He's still only 27 years old. Going to be 28 by the time the season starts,
and his knee is like 47. Unfortunately, I think he's had two ACL injuries over the last 4 years. I think, is that right?
So yeah, he's not going to be the same player. I right. think as a for the fans, for the people who have been a fan of this team, who remember sort of watching Andy Nahar. This team has had way worse depth options out there than Andy Nahar. Let's be serious. I think, and you know what? I'm not going to call him done. I think he could come in and surprise some folks. He maybe has to change his game, and maybe he knows that. I think if you read, there was a great article over on Angels on a Parade that really sort of broke down, and Alicia Rodriguez wasn't saying for sure, but it definitely seemed like the sort of stop and go 2020 season was not really in the sort of large amount of games on a scale, really doesn't allow somebody to really integrate themselves into a team. Hopefully we're going to have a little bit more of a normal season this year.
See Edison Flores for potential hope for that being the case.
Yep. So I'm not ready to call him done. I think he could still come in here and be an effective player. And we'll see what happens. I hope he comes back. But he may end up, signing with Olympia and taking the payday,
Or yeah, I'm not really necessarily sure how much. I'm wondering, what a league minimum here versus a salary there would be. I'm not really.
I mean, sure. Olympia is the biggest club in Costa Rica, so I think that does.
Honduras, isn't it?
Honduras. Sorry, you're right. I apologize.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I mean, like, we could transfer market to see what like the values of the players at and Olympia are. But either way, if he's bad and he's depth and he's not making a lot of money, who cares? We're not going to sign somebody better. Like, okay, say we sign a starting right back, a different one that's good, one that's more expensive and has two good knees and is 25 years old, 24 years old. And Chris Odoyatsam already was the second option. That wasn't going to change. How much more value does O'Neal Fisher bring than Andy Nahar? What kind of upside does Andy Nahar have that O'Neal Fisher didn't have? I don't think it matters. Like, I think this is entirely it's a lottery ticket. If he can get some of his mojo back, awesome. If he can't, if he excites the Honduran community that has not really been really energized in the last few years, cool. That's more benefit. I don't see the downside. We'll see if it actually happens. Rodney Wallace, another player, Costa Rican national, former DC United player. His career really, however, took off in Portland, where I think he was a MLS Cup winner at some point. Also training to come back. He trained last year, did not make a roster spot. That's great depth on the wings. Mm-hmm. I would love it. It was fantastic. If it actually happens, we'll see. I think that there are affordable options that the teams are familiar with. They're going to get a chance to look at them up close and have sort of exclusive opportunity to sign them because they'll be in training with them. Hope it happens. Quick Kamar Lawrence button on this. Calvin from YouTube says, I think the Lawrence one depends on how you think about Mora. How realistic is it that you have both on your roster at once? In theory, both are nailed on starters when healthy. I think that's true. I think the fact that there's been a lot of I mean, of the rumors that are existing, left back is a position that they are targeting, that they're looking at, at least according to the media.
Well, the question then becomes, though, does Mora fit? This team is talking about shifting to a 3-5-2 and trying to set that up. I think maybe Mora fits into that. Does Kamar Lawrence fit into that? I'd have to go back and watch tape. I'm not sure. So I think a lot of that. We're just drawing the strings based on the fact that we just suddenly have some Belgian influence in here, so maybe they can be like, hey, this Kamar Lawrence guy's good, we should bring him in, and he's already an MLS player, so we don't have to worry too much about adjustment, but we'll see. I am hopeful. I am eagerly awaiting some rumors right now. Now that the season is now 2 months away instead of a month, or instead of starting next week like we were last year. Remember the season started in February last year? Crazy.
Well, I like that because it gave us actual games to talk about versus the tap dancing you and I will do for the next 2 months. I mean, not tap dancing, urgent content that everyone's going to enjoy every month.
Let's talk abroad.
Yeah, we can do that because there are multiple DC United players present, past, and current that are applying their trade in Europe right now.
Yep, and let's start with the big one. We'll get to the. I posted the Winnie the Pooh meme with following Paul at Swansea and following Chris Durkin at STVVV. We'll start with.
Who was it that then added on to that? The Marquinhos Pedroso's rec team.
That was pretty good. That was I was like, hats off, golf clap. But let's talk Paul Arriola. 25 minutes in a loss to Man City. I put some money on hopefully having him score. I also put some money on Chris scoring. 5.6 foot mob rating. I don't agree with that. He set up one of the only goals. I don't know how a player can start when you're down 3-0.
Hey,
I
just cited the scoring. I didn't say.
Come on, Foot Mob.
Foot Mob has they're whatever.
Is that like the FIFA? You ever play like the FIFA like player career and like you don't do anything and then suddenly it's
minus
like
minus 0.1, minus 0.1,
minus 0.1, wrong position.
Yep. It might be like that.
That's kind of what it feels like.
Swansea is still in second place, I believe, in the league. This was their FA Cup loss. It was always going to happen against Man City. Mm-hmm. Good opportunity for Paul and for Jordan to play. They have a game coming up this week on Wednesday against Nottingham Forest at 2 p.m. So check that one out. It should be on ESPN Plus, right? All the championship games are, or no?
Yep. Yeah. On ESPN Plus, they're select. It's kind of like a select games. They don't show them all, but Swansea is one that gets regular. It's the teams that have like the U.S. It's very clear like the teams that have the U.S. following are the ones they pick to like broadcast.
Logically.
So Swansea's definitely on there. I'm sure every one of their games is going to be on ESPN Plus, if not all of them. At least
I cannot wait to wear my garish away Swansea jersey.
Have you got it yet? Is it?
Oh, it's on its way.
It's on its way.
Yep.
I don't know, man. Those international postage.
I'll get it eventually. When he hopefully comes back in May. That's when it'll get here. It'll be a collector's item.
But yeah. So Nottingham Forest on 2. Ooh, that's got some like deep DC connections right there. Swansea versus Nottingham Forest. I kind of I think all DC fans. There are a lot of classic DC United fans that have like a soft spot for Nottingham Forest because they're like perennial championship teams. I'm pretty sure they haven't played in the Premiership since like since the 1990s era, like Premiership, and they've been like perennial championship. So I always kind of root for them to make it to the Premiership.
Tell them the connection, Ted. They may not know if.
Oh yes, the former coach you guys all love. Ben Olsen played there for I think it was like a couple games. Played really well and then blew out.
Exploded.
His ankle exploded, which seems to be someone's got to come up with like a curse or something because we have Andy Nahar goes to Belgium, his knee explodes. You have Ben Olsen. Ankle explodes. So that seems to be happening a lot.
Paul, stay safe, man.
Stay safe, buddy.
Burn some incense. Do whatever you need to do.
Do whatever you need. Yes, exactly. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of playing time he gets on Wednesday. I think he'll probably be off the bench again. I don't know if you'll see him starting. A chance maybe to play against some not Manchester City, I guess, opponent would be the best way to describe that. That's a pretty tough way to come in. But thankfully, thank you to the Belgian League and ESPN Plus because we can now watch Chris Durkin. He played last week for STVV. I got a chance to watch the game. I was actually very impressed because I've made fun of of the STVV lineup because number one, it has Chris Durkin playing as a right midfielder or as a right back. When he is, if maybe based on how I saw him at DC, he is none of those things. But I thought, oh man, this team sits back, and they do play very much a low block, but they sort of play a style kind of akin to what DC United had done at certain points. They sort of play a low block, and then they get the ball and they go, and it's like, all right, let's go, let's move it forward, direct passing. They sort of bunker, and then they spring. And in the game I saw them against, I'm not going to remember who their opponent is.
You'll have to. It's fine.
Yes. I know they started with an S as well. They had a very similar abbreviation style. They outplayed their opponents in the first half. They have I'm not going to speculate as to which. They have a Asian striker up top who's actually apparently been lighting up the league since they got him and has sort of kept them sort of above relegation. Had several clear chances. The goalkeeper made some incredible saves. Chris Durkin actually almost had an assist.
He's credited as one on FootMob. They gave him the assist in the last game he played.
Oh, they did? Because that goal was called back. He got the assist, it went over the top, and then they called the goal back. So,
I know it almost seems like this community-sourced Belgian stats page is incorrect. I don't know.
Yeah, but I did see it was a great ball over the top. I was very impressed. He is the time in Europe has turned him into a much more polished player. You saw the skill, you saw the ability that he had on the field, but you just never quite saw the polish. And I noticed he was very controlled on where his position was. He was definitely stepping back, but he was still able to ping the ball long distances. And
that was his calling card.
Yeah,
right? That's what I remember most about him. And the fact that he didn't get polished was because he didn't play long stretches.
Yep. So he's getting time. He's getting moments. This team is playing a very, very defensive, counterattacking style, which suits him, having him out there on the field. So I'll be curious to see, maybe if anybody else is watching, because I was pretty impressed with how he looked in this game. And he seems to be flourishing and doing well. So hats off to him.
Would you imagine that he stays if they get relegated? Would he play in the Belgian second division?
I don't know. I think they'll move up. I think they've done well enough to keep themselves.
They're one spot out of the relegation zone.
Yeah, it's tight. I understand that, but I think they managed to keep up. I think they have a striker. They just signed a striker in the January window that I think has helped kind of do wonders for them to keep them sort of afloat, well enough afloat. So
we will see. So yeah. We've got some mailbag that I want to work through. Thank you guys for answering the call on a short notice. James Lambert, Screaming Eagle president, says,
John, they are 7 points clear.
Are they? How many games left to play?
They've, I guess it's 17. It's 34. They got 7 games left, and they're 7 points clear. Right, well, I don't know where you're getting the 1 point from, my friend. I'm sorry.
I didn't say that. I said they were one spot.
They're 2 spots. It's 17th and 8. 17th goes to...
I'm never going to use FootMob again for my Belgian...
That's what Google's telling me. That's what Google's telling me. Apparently they have Europa League playoffs too. So they have a playoff to decide their Europa League. That's interesting. And they actually have playoffs. They have playoffs in the Belgian league, actually. I see a championship round. That's kind of fun.
That's why he went there. He felt comfortable.
Yes.
In a playoff situation.
Yes.
James says, can a new attacking system redeem Kamara as a number 1 striker? That's the $100 million question for DC United. I think that they're going to give him a chance to. I think they're going to try to bring in. I think there's definite interest in bringing in a player to compete with him. I think he's got half of a season to prove that last year was a fluke and that it was down to service. It was down to lack of confidence. It was down to the season's peculiarity. But I think that he's running out of chances. I think he's a cat that's used up 8 of his lives. And I think we'll find out very soon. He's going to have to hit the bricks running. They're going to have an opportunity to score some goals early on in order for them to trust him that he's actually a solution. If not, they're going to spend money in the window. They have to.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. This is sort of his last, maybe not his last chance with DC. I think they're cutting some slack to a lot of players. They're obviously cutting some slack to Edison Flores. They're cutting slack to pretty much everybody up and down the roster. Polliola gets injured, can't really fault him too much. I think they're looking at new coach, new identity. We looked decent down the stretch. I think that's kind of maybe what they're looking at here and saying, okay, let's give him another shot. The pieces are there for him to be successful. He's got a lot of talent around him. Even minus Paul Arriola, he's still got Julian Gressel. He's still got Edison Flores. There's a lot of players in there that are almost designed just to service him the ball and to score. So if he can figure out a way to get hot and get the strikers touch, then we might have something here. I don't know if I'm ready to write him off just yet, but it's close. We'll see. Talk to me 5 games into the season, and we'll see how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I think that we're definitely going to find somebody else coming in. Someone tried to tell me, we're talking on the Discord earlier this week. By the way, search for us if you want to join the RFK Refugees Discord, or message us. But they were talking about how we actually have lots of forwards, and Gelman Rivas is still listed on the jersey order sheet. That for me, that's not indicative of a certainty of them signing. I think that there could be a possibility that was an oversight, but also. That's not good enough. We have the guy, I forget his name, and I'm not going to apologize for forgetting
Yordi
his name
Reyna.
because he scored 1 goal. Not Yordi. I'm thinking about him, the guy from LAFC. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that there's an opportunity there that they could still. They're not fill up. There's an opportunity to add another player there. There's not anyone they can't move along easily. Yordi Reyna is a financial commitment. So he'll get opportunities, but he was never deployed as a 9.
Yeah.
It was never the way that they played him. So I think that James, it's going to be a matter of he's going to have a very short leash and he's going to have to produce, and there will not be any excuses anymore.
And I think maybe, getting in that player that can compete with him, that's, even if they can't go out and get like the star striker that they want, I think it's still kind of sending him a message, say, hey man, we're going to break, we're looking elsewhere. So show us what you got. So,
and I don't know where he goes from here.
Yeah.
I don't know where else he would go. So he's got, he has proven talent in MLS over time. So just bring it back. Hopefully he can get the service he needs.
Yep. That's going to be the key, getting him the ball in the right spots and having him put the ball away. So, yeah,
Sean Massel. This is a question format that does not usually suit us. Usually, other podcasts much better at these than we are. If DC United was a rock band, which band would they be? Is anything pop for you immediately?
You got this. I'm no.
Oh well, just because I picked music for the show. If DC United roster was a rock band, it's very young for the most part. And I think that it's not something that has a lot of national interest. So we're talking about maybe like an indie band that no one's heard of outside of their main city, considering the amount of goals they scored and sort of their national attention. They don't have a lot of, particularly with Paul going. I don't think there's a lot of players that casuals are going to tune in to see. I don't know. It's a band you've never heard of. Let's just say it like that. It's a band that is, they're playing in the clubs. Real small clubs like 50 occupancy, and maybe they'll get discovered and maybe they'll have a breakout. But for the most part, you won't have heard of them unless you're a local. If you're a local, you'll heard of them. That's the best I can do.
I think there's more name recognition with DC United surrounding. They're more of that rock band that had that maybe one or two breakout hits, and then has sort of been floundering, trying to figure out what they're going to do next. Is kind of
what is a famous band that has had all of their members replaced? that at one point was extremely famous, and then over time, maybe through like age and atrophy, like what old band? I would say Van Halen, but that's no good anymore. But like a band that has just like been around so long they've cycled out.
I'm gonna. Should I go local with Richmond and say we're kind of like Guar? Like we're just like
sure, perfect.
we are well known amongst like rock circles and everything, and like we signed players like Freddie Adu. We've won championships. We've been big and famous, and now it's just kind of like we're very localized. Like people in Richmond know who Guar is and everything. So maybe that's what I'll go with.
We're Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, and Ben Olsen was Bruce Springsteen, and now they've just cycled out I don't know who
He did
Max
the
Weinberg
he did
is.
the Jeep commercial.
He did. Uh, all
Or
right.
the Jeep commercial, aka forgetting to put right Russell Knauss on the team sheet.
I got to tell you that this is better than I thought this question was going to go. I think we landed that one. At Bella in My Bones says, who does DC United buy for the right back role, assuming we don't play Knaus there all year again?
We went through a lot of options. We went through Andy Nahar, we went through Kamar Lawrence, we went through
Knaus unlikely to be it. Maybe he will be. I don't know. It's all I know is from interviews that he gave, he doesn't want to play there necessarily. Nope. But we're still. I don't. In a 3-5-2, is Hernan going to play two defensive midfielders? And how do you balance when Felipe gets back in July? How do you balance the rotation?
The one thing I'm hopeful for, Ben, and the Russell Knauss right back was something that sort of kind of worked like towards the end of the 2019 season, and it worked, I think, because no one really had tape on him, and no one really expected him in that position. And what Ben Olsen had a habit of doing, which is when something would work, he would kind of ride it out until it stopped working, and even go further than that. 3-5-2 worked a little bit, and he's like, all right, let's keep doing it. Oh, that didn't work. All right, let's try it again. Let's really commit to the. Oh no, it's really going bad. Let me shuffle back.
He's Michael Scott driving the GPS into the lake, even though it said to turn, because at one point it was correct.
Yeah, so I think that is kind of what we saw out of the whole right back thing. I hope we don't see that again. I think this is a critical year for Russell Knauss.
For sure. I think totally.
He started to show a lot of promise. He was getting some national team attention. When the team brought him in 2017, I will contend, him and Bill Hamid coming back made a huge difference in this 2018 team that does not get talked about because of Wayne Rooney. And we haven't seen that ability. We haven't seen that really from him. We've seen flashes a little bit. He'll have a good game here or there, but we haven't seen the consistency that we saw when he sort of returned from injury in 2018. So I think this is a crucial year for him. So and I tell you what, you bring in a new coach, there's a player we have not talked about that is going to come out of nowhere, because it's what happens with any situation like this. So we'll see. It's going to be fun this year, guys. We still got 2 months to go.
With that in mind, the last question we have here from GrillBot8000 is, are we going to suck again?
I know who that is. It's kind of funny. I know exactly. I won't say who it is because he's clearly hiding his name, but I know who that person is.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, who really knows?
Do you think we'll be last in the league again?
I don't think so.
Second to last in the league again.
I
don't think so either.
I think there's enough talent. I think this team floor is 10th in the East, which I'm not sure if actually that's last anymore. Ceiling is fifth or sixth right now. Who knows? Maybe they signed some players. Maybe some things change. I mean, I think there's enough talent. Even without Areola, there is enough talent on this team to be a decent MLS team. I contend that if the team had played the way that they played, sort of the back half of the season after Olsen was let go, they played a sort of very simple style, they would have made the playoffs because there was enough talent. It was not being used correctly by Ben. And that'll be his ultimate downfall, I think, in 2020 was just the complete mismanagement of the talent he had there. Yeah.
DC United was only 3 points away from the 10th spot.
Yeah, they almost made a playoff. They almost made a playoff spot. Yep. Let's be clear. They were alive on the last day. They were in the playoffs at halftime of their last game. They were in the playoffs. So everybody, and it's that whole back half of the season no one talks about. None of the national media, everybody's like, oh man, it was just an awful season for DC. And I said, sure, it wasn't great, but that back half, that sort of last few games of the season wasn't really that bad. They got some wins in situations that, they needed to get wins, and they were alive heading into the last day, but it's almost like the national media is acting like they were out of it, with 7 games to go or something like that. So
did you know that the Columbus Crew last year were 0-5-5 away from home? They were 9-1-0 at home, and they won no games away, and they
That-
that's a wild record.
Yeah, let's not even look at the standings for the 20.
It was weird.
It was a weird year.
It was a weird year.
Please,
it's a peculiarity for how the season ended up for them.
I am so hopeful we're going to have a normal season, normal standings. We're not using points per game.
I think we will.
Yeah.
I think we will have that.
Yeah, hopefully.
So that's our mailbag. I just want to let everybody know we are starting a new project here as far as multiple shows a week on the regular. That is our plan. I'm going to be going out to both our existing Patreon folks and also just listeners with a survey probably this week about sort of what our plans are and want to get your feedback on it. But this week we'll have Ted DiPietro on for an interview. It will not be live. The second show will not be live. It'll be in your feeds on Thursday. So look out for that. And then next week we'll have Andy Sullivan from Washington Spirit, U.S. Women's National Team. So make sure you get your questions in for both of those and be on the lookout for it.
Yep. And again,
and also, please give us. We haven't had a review lately on iTunes, so if you're a listener and haven't done that yet, give us a chance. Unless you want to rate us poorly, and then just keep on doing whatever you're doing that isn't rating podcasts.
Patreon.com/RFQRefugees, RFQRefugees.com on the website. We've actually been getting some blog content out there for you. So we're gonna try our best to keep that rolling around. Twitter.com/RFQRefugees. Join our Discord. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you guys next week. Vamos.
Vamos.